Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's pick a card is what is your reputation in the spiritual realm? So for those creatures, entities, denizens, angels, all of the above that are in the spiritual realm, how do they view you, both your spirit team and more generally? In fact, we're going to be kind of looking more generally. So it's almost if there was a kind of categorization or an understanding of you by those that are in the higher or potentially other level, I guess, realms, what would they see in you? But particularly the higher realms. I mean, like we really do want to get as clear a picture as possible. But we are going to look at what is kind of your light side, your angelic side, that kind of thing. And also, what are your personal demons and what are the sort of challenges that you're facing and so forth within yourself. So that's what we'll look at, and to some degree a bit of like the people that you're interacting with and the experiences you're interacting with them and how that's all coming out, and your gifts and what you do know of them and what you don't. That's the kind of terrain we're going to cover. Now, probably a year or two ago, I did do a what is your reputation in the spiritual realm reading. I can't remember how I approached it, so this will be different anyway. If you did see that one, then this is like maybe part two and where you've come from there to now. And if you didn't, of course, this is the first time you've seen it, but you might want to go and search it out. As I really don't remember when it was that I did it. But anyway, this is the more current one in any case, though these readings are theoretically timeless. So it doesn't really matter when you come across it. You don't have to see it just when it's published. So with all of that sort of said, basically we just need to go into the pole choice. Just before I do that, just to let you know, I do have a second channel now called Timeline Traveler Tarot, which is kind of really aligned to a lot of the sort of energies, I guess, of this type of reading, because it's looking at everything from like major astrological and spiritual consciousness events on a collective level and also world events and like trying to look at it neutrally from all sides and all perspectives for collective readings. So it's not a pick a card channel, it's a different sort of channel. So if you're interested in that, then the link's in the description box below and you can go and check it out. And if you like it, subscribe, which would be lovely. Also, I do personal readings. If you do want one, that the only way to get one is through my Etsy store. The details for that are in the description box below. Okay, so what I thought I'd do to start off to help with the choice is that I'm using both at this beginning point and a little bit later in the reading the Magic and Mediums deck that has many kind of spiritual abilities, approaches and so forth. So I thought I'd start that as a way for you to try and tune in on where your reputation might sit, what might align with you. And we will use this deck a little bit later around some gifts that maybe you're not aware of and you can access. But the spiritual realm's aware of in your broader reputation. So for pile number one, we have respect. For pile number two, we have intelligence. And for pile number three, we have cleanse. So if one of those draws you, then that's your reading. You can, of course, go to more than one. You might have an amalgam of energies across a couple that more accurately describes your reputation in the spiritual realm. You do you on that. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile one. So you came to the reading with respect. So what I would draw from that is a couple of things in terms of your reputation in the spiritual realm. On one level, there is a great deal of respect for you, full stop. I think that what you're doing spiritually, your approach and so forth has garnered the respect, not only I would say of your spirit team, but of others that are sort of watching your input, your path and what you're doing. But the other side of it, because it's kind of reciprocal, and I think, in fact, the reality that this other side is true too is one of the reasons why you have such respect towards you is that you have such respect towards the spiritual. So I think it's very integrated into your life. There's a kind of both a light-bearing energy, but also a humble energy. So you know that you have spiritual gifts, you know that you have a spiritual mission, you know that we all have spiritual purpose and you're well aware of yours, but you don't aggrandize yourself with it. And you also, I think, have a huge respect for the tradition or traditions that you follow. So if you followed one of the sort of major religions, then you are very, very sort of respectful and adherent to the basic principles of that. If you follow some form of pagan path, some form of high magic or whatever it might be, you respect the traditions, you respect those that have gone before you, you respect the knowledge, all of those sort of things. And as a result, you have a lot of respect, because I think respect is like that. Even in the day-to-day world, if we respect someone, they're much more likely to respect us. If we respect processes and traditions and rules and regulations and all that kind of thing, within an organization or within a group, then we're much more likely to have the respect of that organizational group. So I think there's a reciprocal respect energy that's operating. Does this mean that everything you do on earth in the material realm is given applause? Not necessarily. Does it mean that everything you do shows that respect completely consciously and consistently? Not necessarily, because we all have shadow and we are going to look at that. But overall, I think you have earned respect and you have a genuine respect for the spiritual. So it's a really good sort of starting point. And it also, I think, shows that you understand the importance of things like rituals, traditions, all that kind of thing. You know that that's important to you developing your spiritual path. So we're going to use tarot a couple of times in this reading. We're firstly going to use it just to look at a few lenses through which to look at it. Later on, I'm going to use different decks, and we're going to have a look at the light and the shadow. So we'll use a deck for the light and a deck for the shadow as well, because we're going to look at it both with some energies or entities to show your inner demons and your inner angels, so to speak, and then also what that kind of means for you overall and the kind of astrological associations associated with it. So later on we're going to be using two other decks, but for the moment I'm using the Pastoral Dreams Tarot because I feel that it to me looks like one is in the celestial realm. So if we're looking really for the information about your reputation, that's the deck that I kind of felt drawn to use. We're going to have a look firstly at a bit more about this reputation, just to get a little bit more detail about how respect is operating for you. Then we're going to look at other spiritual energies you encounter, like in terms of spirit guides, spirit energies around you, and or other people that are spiritual, like what's coming externally towards you. So it's more, this one's more internal. What is your reputation? What is really about you? Why is respect a good way of summing it up? Then we're going to have a look at the interaction with other energies. And then we're going to look at what this means for your path or your mission right now. So, because again, we all have a spiritual path or mission. So firstly, just a little bit more about what is meant by respect as being your reputation within the spirit realm. Ace of Pentacles, Two of Pentacles reversed, Ace of, wow, the Tower reversed, the Three of Pentacles. Okay. So I think this actually has quite a specific meaning, Pile 1. It's interesting. I feel as though that you have the respect of the spiritual world and you have respect for the spiritual world, but it's going to play out very much in the material world with the fact that we've got Ace, 2 and 3 of Pentacles. And we've got the Ace of Swords and then the Tower reversed. I think that the respect is playing out here that on some material level, whether it is that you are manifesting something with spiritual gifts, whether it is that you are going to do something with your spiritual knowledge that has a business element or a material element for you in some way, or whether you're even starting something like that, maybe starting a new spiritual group. That is quite possible with these two, because there is that sort of sense here of like the leading energy and the humble energy. And it's kind of like, yes, I could be a leader of this, but I'm grounded enough to be humble as well. But I carry the traditions and I'm working out the way to bring those in. I'm getting like for some of you, you could potentially bring through some quite ancient knowledge actually into a spiritual group. So kind of rebirth it in a way. But it's interesting because the energy of this is the new. We have the Ace of Swords and the Ace of Pentacles, new ideas, new ways of manifesting something in the world. Like there's a new path that you're about to go on. And it is meant to establish something and you are meant to find it. So it'll be interesting when we look at the energies of others around you. You are meant to find your people and there is a kind of mutual respect and a collaborative energy for it. But it's also a softly approach. And it's also that there are some things that you can't choose or move away from. So I feel like you have a reputation for being original, for being, and spiritually and materially and even in the way you think, original, being able to build things, being able to construct things on a practical level in the world that align with your beliefs about spirituality. But you also, and so you're a change agent in a way. You are a leader, but you understand, and this is where the respect is coming from, where the boundaries are, where there are things you can't choose to do. And you also understand how to do change, to do it in a respectful way that kind of iterates on spiritual paths, spiritual approaches and so forth, rather than completely sort of blowing them apart and starting again. So I think your reputation is a bit of a pathfinder. I think that's the other reason why it looks like people could be following what you do. But very much like straight down the line, like very much clear there is a goal. It is meant to be connected with others, but it can't, like it kind of has to go between the boulders. You know what the limitations are. So I think you're meant to be sort of someone who takes spiritual energy, spiritual knowledge forward in some way. And it is taking the traditions, what has already existed, what is already there, but it is within the degree that you can without becoming inconsistent or straying from the path. It is bringing a new lease of life, a new way of thinking about things. So you know what you almost feel like to me? You almost feel like an ambassador, a spiritual ambassador, because I feel like this energy is a bit like someone coming, like in the medieval courts. They would have the trying to establish a new relationship with a new king or queen, for instance, wanting the right collaboration, wanting that, but knowing how far they could go. That's the sort of energy that you have. So you do know the parameters, but you also know how to kind of push the parameters to keep things alive and vital, and also to keep it pure back to its first principles as well. So I think would be both an ambassador or a way shower, but also maybe someone who, if things are getting off the path, kind of gradually, gently brings it back to the path. So you could also be sort of almost like a spiritual archivist or a spiritual regulator. So like whatever one kind of like hits for you that feels about right, that there's something like that going on. And this is you command respect in the spiritual realms for this reason, but it is also because you have a lot of respect for what you're dealing with. You're not going to push it too far. So let's have a look at the external energies that could be impacting you at the moment that is creating this spiritual reputation. Nine of Swords reversed. Wheel of Fortune reversed, Devil reversed, Five of Wands reversed, the Star. Okay. Now there's a couple of ways when I kind of look at things like external influences that I read the cards. I read them both, like what they're classically meaning, but I also read them as like major arcana is external events or bigger picture things that are going on. Court cards are other people that you have to deal with that are having an impact, and minor arcana are you. So the first thing I would say about this is your role is bigger than your individual relationships with others. In fact, there's very little that has to do with that. There is something about relieving tension and relieving fear and relieving resistance to things, but it's on a bigger picture thing. Because we've got the Star reversed, Devil reversed, and the Wheel of Fortune reversed. This is a liberating energy. It's interesting that the Devil was reversed with the Ace of Swords. I think part of what your reputation is and part of why you're chosen in a way for this is that you are meant to liberate from old ideas that are no longer, that would straitjacket too much and would not allow the spiritual development. There's a kind of almost an enlightenment energy operating there. You also are meant to have a little bit of a control over the timing, like not rushing it too much, and helping others to connect to their spiritual path. And I think you would be like a leader within a group. If the group ultimately everybody had different things that they were meant to do, you had your thing and others had others, and they're all equally important. It's like part of your role is actually to bring that group together and let them see what they're meant to do. So whether this plays out in like a very material way or whether it is as a spiritual leader in some way, it's a leader amongst equals, but one of your roles is to reconnect people back to the first principle of their life path. And to help them deal with the anxiety associated with the change. But like on a bigger ticket thing, you're here to liberate. You have a liberation energy and a timing energy, like not letting things rush too much. So, but it's not about an individual thing per se. It's more, you have a very key role in whatever this is, and it has a bigger picture import in one way or the other. Now, whether it plays out in the material world and the liminal space, I'm not sure. Each of you will be different, but that's going on. So let's see, let's just get 3 cards for what does this mean right now for this reputation you have and what is expected of you. What does this mean for your path? 4 of Wands, 8 of Swords, 9 of Cups. Okay. That's interesting with 9 of Cups. When we have a look at what the inner demons you might have, it'll be interesting to see what that is. Because what it is saying at the moment is that it's not about individual connections. It's about groups. It's about society. It's social. It's political. It's a spiritual thing on a larger level. There's something like that. And it is meant to kind of be at home in that and at home in the harmony of that and to have other people at home in the harmony of it. It's a liberation energy, as I keep saying. It's a mental liberation energy. It's liberating people from what they think their limitations are when they're not actually the case. It's really interesting how the 8 of Swords is depicted here, because normally you have all the swords around and the point of it is the person could just walk through them. But this is actually directed. The swords are directed here. So I feel in this it's like unleashing people's freedom and who they are and so forth. So there's something to do with unleashing people's potential. But it's interesting because when you got the Tower reverse, things have to go within certain, it's only restructuring, it's not major change. You're dealing with other people's sort of fears or resistance. It's not necessarily that this is something that, it's almost like this is a job you do, a spiritual job you do because you're the person who's best suited for it, but it's not necessarily your dream job or what you would dream to do. It may be that right now it's just that you have an eye on the goal in the end for something where people have been liberated and you've achieved it and then you can enjoy it. But right now it's a little bit earnest. So I feel like at the moment for you, it's all about respecting what is required of you rather than what you would choose to do. It's got a little bit of a knight in medieval courts feeling about it, like or an Arthurian knight, like I will take on this particular quest because not because I want it or it's my dream, but because it's necessary. When I've achieved that, maybe I will be relieved of that requirement and then I can go and pursue my own dream. So this is really much more to do with big ticket things that are to liberate people from like false assumptions or whatever, but not to shift into anarchy, let's put it that way, rather than something that's really personal to you or interpersonal in your relationships with others in a kind of, one-on-one sort of level. Okay, so let's have a look then at the 2 sides of the coin. So I want to have a look at what the angel side is for you, what the side of light, that you are recognise your reputation is about. What do you kind of represent, looking at angels and other sort of like beings of light as representations of that. And then I also want to look at your inner demons and what shadow you're known to have as well too. And we're going to use a deck that has demons for that. Now, it doesn't mean demons are hanging around you, nor does it mean on the other side that the angels or beings that we bring up are hanging around you. But if you practice on either side of that or both, and you do feel a connection with something and it comes up, take it as a confirmation that this is not only something about you, but that you are drawing that energy because of an internal mirroring reflection kind of thing. But this is much more about you. So we're going to have a look at 2 aspects of light that you have a reputation for and 2 aspects of shadow. We're going to have a little bit of a look at that with tarot about what that means for you. And then we're going to have a look at the astrology that's connected with it. So firstly, let's get a couple of aspects of light. Put that over this side and then we'll put shadow over that side. So first aspect of light that is in your reputation. Archangel Ariel. So environmental abundance, guardian of the earth. Okay, so yeah, there is something quite material. Look at the pentacles. There is something about you that is about the material, about the environmental, about the earth. So you part of this is a sense of stewardship, I think. And you're also known Saint Bridget for passion, fire, and growth. So to bring passion, to bring clarity. Now, it's interesting that we didn't get wands. The only wands card actually that we got was dealing with other people's resistance. But I think it's your own, like carrying the flame here. I think it's your energy of the fire and the passion towards the greater goal and the better goal, connected with the sense of stewardship and responsibility. Those are the two kind of energies from light. What about demons? What internal demons or shadows do you have to deal with to stay on this path? Because I think a lot of this is about you staying very true, respecting the path as well as being respected on the path. The first kind of inner demon energy is chimeras. This is intellectual refinement, material wealth, uncovering secrets. Okay. And then the second one is bifrons, knowledge in mystical and occult subjects. Okay, all right. So your reputation in the spiritual world is being very spiritually developed. So you do have the knowledge, okay? So you will have respect within the spiritual realm and probably within the material realm if you're talking about these sort of things, that you know what you're talking about. This can become a shadow if it becomes, I know what I'm talking about, this is the way, this is it, because part of the energy is meant to liberate people so they can find what is right for them and their own path. So there is a little bit of a risk, even when you're working within very strong kind of regulation about being a steward and having your passion connected towards growth and what is good, that it becomes, I'm right and that's it. And I'm the one who's got the mystical knowledge, so you must follow me. So there is definitely a thing of like the humility is also important. With chimeras, with the intellectual refinement, the uncovering secrets, again, it's like I think that many of you in one way or the other will be around people that are powerful or issues that are secret or issues that, like, there's something like that as well too. And it's being able to use that information and that knowledge without abusing it on any level. You know, once you kind of, whether it's through occult sort of and spiritual development, you become open to, or you receive some form of secret knowledge that most don't have, or whether it is very like in a political party you learn things that is not generally known or something like that. There's something here about the right use of knowledge, and the biggest risk for you is that with the intellectual refinement, you're very clever. You could potentially rationalize for yourself that it is, even misusing it is still within the, it's almost like, okay, I'm sticking within the pathway, but I'm going to push it really far in a way that is not towards liberation. It's towards self-aggrandizement. So that's what you have to balance, because you have a lot of passion, a lot of stewardship, but it's a bit like uneasy is the head that wears the crown, because it's sort of like there is a lot of responsibility and a lot of risks to your reputation. So let's just get some tarot from the Golden Dream Tarot around the light energy for a little bit more about how this reputation operates for you. King of Swords. Just want to put this so that you can see it on the screen. King of Swords. Eight of Swords reversed. Yeah, it's about liberation. This is really important. Three of Swords. Justice. Wow. Wow. Okay. One of the things for you is very much your intelligence. Like, it's interesting. I don't know whether you're also drawn to the second reading, which was intelligence, but that's kind of more like, you know, like intelligence, like secret, sort of like forensic, you know, like astral travel, remote viewing type of intelligence. But nevertheless, your mind is really, really sharp. I just want to put down 4 cards from the Gothic Dawn Tarot for how this risk or the inner demons can also have an impact. Wheel of Fortune. 8 of Pentacles. King of Swords reverse. Look at this. Like a very direct thing about how you use your mind. 4 of Pentacles reversed. Okay. So when you are using this at the best, you are incredibly fair and incredibly just. You go at a speed that works and other people can work with. You don't, because you've got a very fast mind, all this sort of, you know, like intelligence or whatever, like you're very quick, but you go at a level that people can keep up with, and you don't go outside of the parameters with that. And you're about you focus on healing pain around what is just. There's a lot of kind of like spiritual warfare on the side of the angels, social justice kind of energy around this when that has to do with your reputation and what you do. And like you may in fact play this out in a legal type of environment. You could be a lawyer, or you could be around government or regulation or whatever it might be. But there's something like that. There's a very strong, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to go outside of the lines, even when it's painful to me. But I'm going to respond to where there's pain. Like I'm going to find the pain point, and I'm going to find a way spiritually to liberate that. So there's a very strong, good soul energy coming here. But you are very good at it. You're very smart, and you do have access to a lot of like occult or spiritual knowledge. So the risk around it is that can you get so intent on developing your knowledge that it becomes more about you and intellectual or spiritual superiority, knowing more or whatever, than it does about the issue? Can it become something where you almost try and control timelines or fate or luck or manifestation in some way? And in doing that, do you actually undo some of the foundation that is the thing that you respect and you're respected for? Like, I just think it's pretty clear here that your mind is both your strongest attribute for this and your sense of fairness, but also your mind can give you a focus on, I need to learn more, I need to learn more, I need to control more, that actually tips you in the other direction. It's just like, how wide can those rocks go? How wide can you make the pathway to liberate and let others come through and find their path without starting to rationalize it? So what's the astrology energy that's operating? What kind of astrology energy is operating with the light side, in the way that you're seeing? So firstly, we have Pluto in the 4th house in Cancer. So this is all about family or whatever. It talks about developing emotional resilience, and a lot of that is through the mind. But I feel like what I'm really looking at this is I'm thinking about the 4th house. That tells me that some of this plays out in your home life and in what makes you feel safe and secure and what makes other people feel safe and secure. And with Pluto there, it's meant to be revolutionary and evolutionary. So you are a change agent at the most core, fundamental, Maslow's hierarchy of needs type of level with people, and it's a powerful energy. That's why it's really important. You're playing with something very core to other people. And we also have Pluto in the 11th house. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's the 2 levels. This is like you are a change agent. Part of your reputation is being a major change agent. And as I say, but still respecting what is necessary, because these are very big shifts. But like this is the 2 areas that you're playing is in people's like kind of their day-to-day life and where they feel secure, and also how they interact with others with the 11th house. So it's social and it's emotional, and it's like that's why it's so important that you use this sort of sense of justice and that you're clear about that, because you have a lot of power. You have a lot of power, which of course then becomes the challenge over here, having a lot of power and a lot of the knowledge. So how does the astrology of the challenge play out for you? Firstly, we have Mercury in the 12th house, mystical force. Yeah, like you could do a lot in secret with Mercury in the 6th and the 12th house. You could manipulate. Like this is the problem, like that kind of knowledge, that kind of ability. And that would damage your respect, to be honest. It would damage the respect that you were held in, and it would show a disrespect. But you could rationalize that and think, well, I'm the one with the mystical knowledge. I have to determine when it can be discussed. So there's an ego issue you have to deal with here. And Mercury, again, isn't it interesting? We've got Pluto, and then Mercury in the 2nd house in the good life. So yeah, so for you, actually, this is pretty clear. For you are there's a lot of power. You have a lot of power, communication-wise and change-wise. And you really, at its best, you take people through change in a way that respects all the spiritual traditions, respects people's sort of like security, respects social and and justice issues, all of that kind of thing. But you're very clever, and so it's possible for you to convince yourself, I think, that your knowledge can't be known by everybody, and therefore you need to create for yourself good fortune out of this, because like it's sort of like one of the things that bothers me a bit with the law of attraction and manifestation is there can be a belief structure that the more wealthy you are, the more spiritually advanced you are because you've manifested, and there's so many factors that go into that. So it's like, and that's not really respecting what that's about or the role of the material or the spiritual. So, but you're very clever and you could convince yourself or others of that at the dark out thing. So you have to hold yourself in kind of regulation, I think. Pole one, but it is because you're powerful. So we're going back to this to just see a couple of other skills or areas that you have spiritual heft, I suppose, that you may not be fully aware of that could be useful in getting this balance right, but that, the spiritual realm sees as part of your reputation, but you might not yet fully realize. So the first one is conjure. So yeah, you can conjure. I'm going to put that there. You can actually affect things to your own benefit and move energies. But, it's like, what does that do to your reputation long term, though? And then what about one other? Meditation. So I think that's going within and really thinking this through and clearing and cleansing the energy is probably the way to do it. So I think meditate a bit more. You're probably more a person of action and learning and discussion and change rather than going within. So going within always helps you self-regulate. Being aware of what you conjure up, because you do have that power, and being very aware of how to use that so that it doesn't damage your reputation and damage the respect that you've earned and the respect that you have for the spiritual. Okay, so how we're going to finish off this to differentiate a bit within the collective that came to this reading is I'm going to ask you to choose a number between 1 and 5. And instead of, I've been using tarot for the synthesizing message at the end, with that number. But I'm going to actually use the Mystic Maiden's Oracle because it has spiritual archetypes. So if you choose a number between 1 to 5, pause if you have to because I'm about to deal them out. Whichever one that is a distillation of a spiritual archetype that you are viewed as in terms of your spiritual reputation, bringing all this sort of information together. So if you chose number 1, you have the Mother. If you chose number 2, the Forest Mystic. If you chose number 3, the Oracle. If you chose number 4, the Scribe. And if you chose number 5, the Hellraiser. Okay. So number 1, this comes back very much to this energy of the passion and the material. You're meant to sort of birth something new. That's why we had the Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Swords, in terms of the energy for you. If you take on a nurturing aspect, you're much less likely to be caught up with the demons. You're much more likely to retain that respect. And the Mother is an incredibly creative archetype and an incredibly respected archetype spiritually. Also, I think there might be something about you building in the material world the respect of the divine feminine. If you chose number 2, the Forest Mystic, it also connects you to the nature side of things. There's an elemental energy to what you do, and probably some of the spiritual traditions that you knowingly or unknowingly are following have that kind of more pagan and more nature-based energy. If you chose number 3, then a lot of your ability comes from a connection to knowledge and the liminal space and being able to see the timelines and so forth. It's probably one of the more challenging ones to make sure that you don't let your inner demons sort of like start to control you as opposed to your inner sort of like stewardship. But on the other side of that, if you have an oracle, you can see the consequences of things. And I think understanding the consequences of choices, you're much more likely to go towards your angels than your inner demons. If you chose number 4, part of what you can do here, and this would actually help you balance this, because in doing this and writing things down, we often kind of like with all that swords energy, you can really look at what you're saying and see the consistency for it. I think you're meant to record your knowledge and share it in some way. And if you chose number 5, then you are here for that Pluto energy. And like there is a little bit of you can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs about your energy. But it's good in a way that the Pluto is over here, because it really does sort of show that as long as you keep towards a just outcome, the Hellraiser is a force for change and for critical thinking, I think, and breaking through, the falsehoods that are around. So I hope that that resonated for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So you can do the reading with intelligence. So, I mean, we could take that very literally, and we could say in the spiritual realm, you are known for your intelligence. But this card is actually a little bit more about using spiritual gifts for intelligence, for getting information and so forth. It's sort of like pictures someone doing something like remote viewing. So I think you have a reputation for being able to astral travel, remote view, gather information. You may have some sort of a role across many lifetimes doing that. You may, in one form or another, manifest that in a material world, whether it's literally through some sort of astral travel, remote viewing, or whether it's that you're someone who has a very forensic, deep view of things and can see on a very wide scale. Like, you're not just grounded to where you are. You can see what is going on elsewhere, even if it's just sort of theoretically. So if you were a wealthy person, you could actually truly understand and see what it would be to not be wealthy. If you were a powerful person, you could see what it would be to not have power. So your breadth of sight is further than your physical and material surroundings. So your reputation is that you can actually understand and see broader and deeper and in more complexity, I think, than others. But you may literally also have some sort of reputation for being able to astral travel, or influence, or at least see and analyze things at great distance. Wouldn't surprise me if some of you are quite oracular or could do this sort of work, because I actually think when we do tarot readings or anything like that, we're not seeing the future, we're seeing the present at long distance. We're seeing all the different sort of factors of energy that are coming in and the probabilities of it. So there could be a very strong energy here for those of you who have come to this particular reading, that you have that kind of oracular ability as well. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the Pastoral Dreams Tarot, because it's a tarot I think kind of reflects the celestial realms, just to get a sense of what the viewpoint is. There's 3 different things I want to look at with that. Then we're going to have a look at your light or your angelic side, and your shadow or your demonic side, so inner demons, not actual demons or whatever, and how that plays out with your reputation and what you need to be aware of, including astrologically. And then we'll bring it together with some other gifts, coming back to this deck, and a spiritual archetype. So that's the journey that we're on. So let's see firstly a little bit more about your overall reputation that links to this intelligence card. Queen of Cups, 2 of Pentacles reversed, Devil reversed, 4 of Swords, Knight of Swords. Okay. You are definitely, you find hidden information. You definitely do. Like, so as I say, whether that is something you do in your job, whether it is remote viewing, whether you meditate and you see amazing things and you wonder if it's true, it is true. Like, you are, meditation and the inner realms are incredibly, it's like you actually transport yourself on the mind and on communication in some way. So there is definitely that sense of flight. You've got the Knight of Swords here as like an angel with wings. You've got the 4 of Swords, the meditative way, but the hidden, you definitely see the hidden. And very rapidly, you're very quick. Like, you'd be very quick in general in just catching on to things, particularly intellectually. But like in the spiritual realm, you're seen as someone who can be sent to find the hidden, definitely. That's definitely part of what you are. You're also seen as very emotionally mature. So you're able to do this without, it's kind of like you could be neutral. You could, if you were looking at, say, something political or social, if you saw both sides, you would see both sides. And you can be neutral around it, because part of what you're doing is actually breaking people out of, like, when I lay those down, there's a particular person I see on YouTube sometimes who talks a lot about what he calls the prison of 2 ideas, which is this very binary thing, like, like one side's good and one side's bad. This is good or this is bad, when in actual fact there's usually a number of ideas, and the world is much more complex than that. But people do tend, particularly with the way that information is used algorithmically at the moment, we are almost forced into a prison of 2 ideas. Your ability to astral travel, remote view, dream it all up, telepathy, all those sort of things breaks you out of the prison of two ideas. So it gives you, you have a reputation for a kind of a nuance in your understanding of things, as well as your capacity to get to the core of it. And you are seen as being emotionally mature enough to be able to have access to that information without it becoming too much of a problem. Now, we are going to look at the inner demons that you might have. I mean, we all struggle with our gifts as well as benefit from them. But overall, that's the reputation you have. So we're going to have a look at what kind of external and internal forces are operating in the development of this reputation and how you use it next. So the Tower reversed, the Chariot, the King of Cups reversed. Oh, that's interesting. The Two of Wands reversed, the Hierophant reversed. Okay. Now I'm reading in this line, I'm reading the tarot in two different ways. I am reading it classically, but I'm also reading it as where there is major arcana, this external stuff. It's not personal, but it's external, that your reputation and how you're enacting it is kind of almost the environment in which it's playing out. When there's a court card, there's at least one person or a type of person that is interacting with you that is important to this. And where there's minor arcana, it's what's important to you, like what the kind of personal stuff. So the first thing about this is that out of 5 cards, we have 3 major arcana. So this is pretty big. You're not only on a big kind of canvas in terms of what you can do, but there's a lot of this. Your reputation is using this for bigger ticket issues. And I think it's here with the Tower reverse and the Chariot, I think it's around understanding the implications of rapid change versus like kind of considered restructuring. I think that there's something about your intelligence and your way of getting information and understanding the consequences and understanding the interconnections of things, where a lot of what you do is to kind of balance out or help balance out strategy. How quickly can we change? How quickly can we move? For big ticket things that probably need to happen, like on a spiritual realm, they see that the changes that you're supporting are important, but it's like how it's done. Also, you definitely could find out the weak points of those in spiritual power or sort of regulatory power or anything like that. Like you would root out corruption really, really well with the Hierophant reverse. And you would also see where there were false prophets and false leaders and so forth, which leads me to this. We have the King of Cups reversed with you coming up as the Queen of Cups, and then the Two of Wands. I think at times there's 2 ways that this could be playing out, Paul. 2. One is that you come across, part of what you do with this is to find the false prophets, the ones who are pretending to care, and it's all rhetoric, but it's actually not that, and they're limiting the choices and the freedoms of others. So it's keeping them in the prison of two ideas. Because it's like propaganda and false testimony, that in general. And part of what your reputation is you're more emotionally honest, so you will look at this more emotionally honest. They use emotion and manipulate people with it. The other is it could literally be in a very personal relationship that you are going to have to deal with somebody who is pushing in a different direction to you. So it's just something you have to know, and they may be someone very close to you, either, a lover, a very close friend, or maybe a family member. So it's not going to be the case for everybody, but for some that will be an issue. Okay, so what does this mean to your path right now? We'll just get 3 cards for that. Queen of Wands, Queen of Swords. Wow, all these queens. Knight of Cups reversed. Okay. For your path right now, what this is saying, and I think it's because there's this challenge. There's a challenge around at the moment, and your reputation is that you're more than able to deal with this, and you will be able to probably pick it up if you know to look for it in your kind of astral travel or whatever, is that there will be a false energy, people who are false or people who are close to you or not, that are pushing against the liberation of others from, as I say, the prison of two ideas, false prophets, that kind of thing. And so it is saying, but it is possible that you could get beguiled with this, particularly if it's a close energy to you. So it's saying while your overall reputation is for this emotional maturity and clarity and so forth, what you really need to be drawing it on at the moment is the clarity of your thought and your sense of self-actualization and knowing what you're doing. It's be a bit more dispassionate. So something's coming up right now where it may even be for some of you that if you actually exercise this ability and you look more broadly, you might find something that disappoints you. Like, for instance, if you thought that you were following a political party that you thought was the caring political party, and then you look into it in more detail and you find out it's corrupt, then that's really disappointing to find that out. But if you retain the sort of sense of I'm here for the clarity and I'm here for people being able to self-actualize, then I can rise above that. I can be not as hurt by it. So it's just an example, but there's that kind of energy potentially around this because you are able to see a lot of stuff, and sometimes that means we see stuff that is damaging to some of our sacred cows, but we need to see it to be open and honest and so forth. So let's have a look at how your inner angels work, kind of the light side. So we'll get a couple of angelic or similar sort of, saint-like or whatever beings. And then we're also going to get a couple of demons, not to say that demons are around you, but your inner demons and how your reputation sort of shows how you have to balance all of that with this particular path, I think. Now, if you work with either angels or demons and something comes up that you think you work with, take it as a confirmation. Otherwise, this is much more meant not to be actual angels or demons. It's just your own inner light and shadow. So the key light energies for you, Pole 2, are firstly Merlin. Okay, yeah, the ability. That's interesting too. I'm just going to stop before I do anything else because Merlin had all these sort of abilities definitely and was very pivotal around sort of the social and like power matters of his time, but he ended up being beguiled by Nimue. So there is a kind of, yes, there is alchemy, manifestation, being a magician, but and that is the light side of it, but you do have to be careful who you connect with. And what else is on the light side for you? Goddess Isis, resurrection, magic. There's a lot about magic. So a lot of this is a very magical energy that you have. So it's possible that there's also the capacity to influence through your will what you see. So that would be interesting when we're looking at the demons, because the more that you can manifest as opposed to just analyze and so forth. So the more that you influence something, the more you have to be careful of your own inner demons. So what inner demon energy is your spiritual reputation about that you need to be aware of? Firstly, we have Oribas. This is goodwill, knowledge, assurance, and success in relationships, insights into the past, present, and future. Well, you definitely have the insights. Now, that theoretically doesn't sound particularly like a demon, like an inner demon, but there could be the balance of like the relationship energy and what you want to see, because there's something in here about maybe being disappointed by a relationship or a group or something like that. So an expectation that it was all going to be good may in fact become an inner demon if it isn't, I think. And then the second one is Rayon. Wealth, power, control over others, chaos and disruption, reveal information. Yeah, this in one form or another, to be able to do this takes you into a powerful realm where the revelation of information and the sort of things that you're dealing with could be very powerful. If you have an expectation everything is going to be fine and then you reveal it, it could actually be an inner demon is dealing with the consequences of that. So let's see, with a couple of different decks, we're going to use Golden Dream deck here and the Gothic Dawn deck here, just to sort of see how the kind of the inner angels and inner demons are working for you in your spiritual reputation. So the inner angel energy, which seems to be about magic, alchemy, manifestation, that kind of thing. Hanged Man reversed, Four of Cups, Page of Cups reversed, Eight of Pentacles reversed. Okay, I'm just going to put out the other one before I talk about it. So then the inner demon energy that you need to be aware of. Three of Cups reversed, Ten of Wands, Nine of Pentacles reversed, Six of Wands reversed. Okay, all right. So When we're looking at your inner angels working, you have a different way of looking at things, like literally a different way of looking at things. You can see a perspective, a broader perspective than most. And you can see where there are blocks, particularly emotional. That's why you had the Queen of Cups. You're very good at picking up emotional nuance. I'd actually hazard a guess that if you walked into a room, you can pick up the energy really quickly. And that's very accurate. It's very accurate. You've mastered this, which is allowing you to help others break through where they have emotional blocks. So a lot of what you do a lot of the time, oddly enough, this could be very good for being a therapist or something, not just sort of a forensic sort of person, but a therapist, like getting to the core of something and seeing more broadly. You have mastered the capacity to look at things differently. And as a result, you can find the emotional blocks or emotional falsehoods. So when you're using it that way, it works really, really well. When you are dealing with either disappointment about something, when you thought everything was fine and then, wow, you come across information that tells you the world is very different to what you thought. So the different information is actually a bit alarming, or where there is a lot of power associated with it. It could be around relationship issues. So you may be sort of someone who can pick up when there's a third party or something like that going on really early in the piece. And that could bring out your inner demons. Like it could be like, oh, is that psychic? I hope that's not psychic, sort of thing. But there's also a thing of like when there's more than, it may be when there's more than one person who's able to do what you do or seems to be similar to you. If you feel that you're not being recognized, then you may not want to carry the burden of working with other people. So I think that there's a kind of I can use this. Yeah, this is the inner demon thing. I mean well and I want the best and I hope to find everything that will bring the best and I will reveal information to bring the best. But if you don't recognize me, and if you kind of gossip about me or you know, like I don't have that sense of communion with you, then I'm not going to do it. So there's almost ego issue, I guess, that you have to deal with for your reputation, because it's an ability you're going to have anyway. And it's kind of like, I almost feel like I just sort of had a flash of, you know, the movie Clockwork Orange, and near the end, the Malcolm McDowell character, they make him watch a whole bunch of things and they actually kind of like pin his eyes open. It's almost like whether you like it or not, you're going to see the truth of things and you're going to see the depth of it. And sometimes you'll kind of turn against others because you'll feel like, God, I don't like what I see. I think that's really what this is. So it's how to deal with the demons of this is like, how do you deal with it when it's not what you would want to see? So let's see some astrology energy around it. And I'm really here looking at whatever the planet is for the nature of the energy and whatever house it's in, rather than whatever the card actually says, because I'm looking at it for a particular thing. So areas astrologically where this works at its best, where you've mastered the way of looking at things differently and you break through emotional blocks. Firstly, we have North Node in Gemini. Okay, yeah, curiosity. Like when you are heading towards communication, understanding things, a forensic thing, and it's almost a bit detached and it's just about bringing information and communication, that's fine. I do think your biggest risk is when you find out things that would actually disappoint you. That's why it's saying right now you might find that a bit in your path, and that's why you've got to focus more on just the information and the energy of it, not be too sentimental. What else works well astrologically for your light side with this? Sun in the fourth house, heritage. So your family, this is probably something that's come down through your family. There's at least one person in your family. And this might be the issue too. You might actually be the best at this, but be not recognized within your family or by others. So that could be both. It's a gift that you have that's come through there, but also kind of like was the first seeding of the sense of, will I be recognized? Will I be seen? Will I see what I want to see? But at its best, it gives you a sense of family connection and protection of others. What about the challenges, which seem to me to be about whether you'll be recognised fairly with whatever groups you work with or whatever. The first one is Moon in the fifth house. Needs to be needed by others. Yeah, you need to know that what you're doing is of worth to others. In the fifth house, there's something quite creative about your emotional thing. Like, so it's almost as though the way that you would want to present this is quite creative. So if people accept that, that's fine. If they don't, then that could become a bit of an issue. That could be disappointing. And Pluto in the ninth house, deep desire to know the source of our being. Like, so you really do want to have this special knowledge. So that can also, if people don't recognize that you're doing that, then yeah, that feels very Plutonian. How do you use intelligence? And if people aren't recognizing you and don't need what you want, how do you respond if that's the case? Now, remember, we all have light and shadow, so I'm not saying you're definitively doing that, but that's the risk when you're dealing with that kind of ability, and that your reputation spiritually is that you can, at your best, work to that. At your worst, it could go in that direction, and we all have sort of choices and so forth. Let's get a couple of other spiritual gifts or areas that you have that the spiritual reputation knows you have, but you may not be fully aware you can use yet or that you have yet. Healing. Okay, so you may not have thought about this, but in finding the truth, I mean, if you think about it, when somebody gets a diagnosis, that's the first step to healing. So under certain circumstances and in certain ways, this kind of ability is there. And you may, in fact, be able to, some people can, they can kind of energetically pick up sort of illness in people and so forth. So you can definitely use this on a healing level. And sacred heart, okay, this is like getting to the core of the divine mission. So you can also, I feel like this is saying, okay, so I think mainly this is saying at the moment that you use this, it's sort of like seeing things in other parts of the world, understanding what's going on in group dynamics, whatever it might be. And what you don't realize, firstly, is you could heal a lot of energies just with the information you can bring in, but that you can also do this to the celestial realms. Like, it's almost like, if you remote view around the world, fine, but kind of remote view into the celestial realms, I think you would be welcomed in the celestial realms. And I think, in fact, I think your spirit team and the spiritual reputation would kind of like you to visit there sometimes, because it really helps manage this side of things. It brings things back to the purity. Okay, so to close out, in quite a few readings I've been doing tarot, and I've been saying choose a number from 1 to 5, and the tarot archetype is sort of like the synthesis of that message for that part of the collective. This time around, I'm using the Mystic Maiden's Oracle for spiritual archetypes, but it's similar to that sort of thing. I just want you to choose a number from 1 to 5 and pause if you have to, because I'm about to deal them out. And it will show a spiritual archetype that brings all this together for that part of the collective that chose that number. So if you chose number 1, the light worker. If you chose number 2, the wind whisperer. If you chose number 3, the mermaid. Wow. If you chose number 4, the stargazer. If you chose number 5, oh, the she-devil. Okay. So for number 1, if you chose number 1, the main thing you're doing this is for is as a light worker. And I think that keeps you pretty solidly over here. But as I say, higher truths and spiritual wisdom, connecting back to the divine will always be a good thing to do, because when you're working from the light, it can be very disappointing and almost kind of, I don't know, this doesn't feel comfortable to be seeing some of the darker energies, but you're going to see some of those, and you have to see some of those to work in the light. So I think there's a kind of real connection back here to make sure that you go to the celestial realms in your astral travel or dreams or whatever it might be. If you chose number 2, change, adaptability and freedom, I feel like you actually have a capacity to influence when you're there. So it's not as just a remote viewing when you're kind of separate. I think it's saying that you actually have an ability to influence other people in that state. But it's like a whisper on the wind. So it still leaves freedom of choice. Don't overdo it. Still leave freedom of choice, but kind of it's almost spreading, like Goddess Isis spread Osiris around. It's kind of like spreading the magic in some way. Number 3, this is the allure of the unknown, is certainly, obviously, like you are able to see the unknown in a way that most can't. But I also think this is like going back to the Queen of Cups. At its core, this comes from your heart and from your emotions. That's also why emotional responses to what you see and how it's received is important. I think always go back to your emotional core, and I would almost, for you, do remote viewing into the sea sometimes and being with sea creatures, because I think that will help you. If you chose number 4, I think astrology might help you. Like looking at things, it might be astrology. One of the ways to do that with remote viewing is to just get some latitude and longitude. Do the remote viewing, and then maybe also look at the energies at that time astrologically at that latitude and longitude and see how that connects up. It may help you make connections in a broader sense. Plus also look to the celestial realms as well. And number 5, if you chose that, this is for those who chose number 5, you have the strongest issue around this. Like, you really do have to know how to use this energy so that you don't, well, I guess, maybe you can choose. I'm going to go with my inner demons and I'm going to just use this for fun. And I guess that's your choice. But that would have an interesting impact on your reputation spiritually, I would have thought. So I think being aware of the temptations and desires that can come from this is an important thing, but also realizing that you can have that, but you might think, oh, I really like this person, I'm going to kind of connect to them spiritually, and then you find out something that's really upsetting. So be careful how you use it, I think, for those who chose number 5. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with cleanse. So if we look at this as a first sort of indication of your reputation in the spiritual realm, I think you are seen as someone who would clear and cleanse sort of energy, people, environments, the spiritual space, all of that kind of thing. I think that you have a natural ability to do that. You are like that kind of energy. If you are in a group, in a room, in a place, in a ritual, in a process, or whatever it might be. And it might be part of your role at the moment, or full stop, to be that kind of energy, the energy that clears the air. Like, it could range from someone who can exercise or deal with really dark energy and spirits and so forth, through to just someone who has that fresh energy, clear energy, healthy energy, that kind of thing. So now the interesting thing is, one of the things we're going to do in this reading is we're going to look at both the angelic side of this, like the light side of that reputation, but also the inner demons that you might have. And one of the things about cleansing is that it's all about balance, isn't it? It's all about having just the right amount, not too little or not too much. To cleanse well is to clean in a way that keeps, like, if you're cleansing your system, you need to keep certain bacteria in your system, otherwise your gut's going to suffer. So it needs to be the right balance. It needs to be the right sort of cleansing sort of energy. It needs to clean away what needs to be cleaned away, but not too much, and to allow for the vitality and growth of whatever the environment, person, etc. is that you've been helping in that way. Because if we have too much cleansing, it can be damaging to us. It can be too astringent. It can be too harsh. The wrong cleansing materials on a desk, for instance, might sort of change the color or change the texture or damage it in some way. So there's a great deal of importance, if that is your reputation for doing that it's appropriately applied and it's not too much. So your degree of judgment about what is necessary is very important, and what could be impacting that in terms of your inner angels and also your inner demons could be important. So it will be interesting to see. You may play this out as someone who provides sort of spiritual and or health cleansing sort of products or approaches and so forth, and again, needs to be properly diagnosed, applied, etc. So I think that it's a beautiful reputation to have in many ways, because we need that kind of cleansing, clearing energy, but we need it to be just strong enough. So there's a lot about balance for you, I think. Now we're going to look firstly with the Pastoral Dreams Tarot, as I think it kind of has a celestial feeling to it. Firstly, for a bit more about the overall reputation, how that's playing out. Then we're going to look at how, in what environment and with what people and so forth is this playing out at the moment, and then how it connects to your spirit path right now. So a little bit more about what your reputation is given this energy. Queen of Cups, Page of Cups, the Chariot reversed, the Two of Wands, the Ten of Cups. Wow. A lot of this has to do with emotional energy, clearing emotional spaces, love, family, all of those sort of connections. I think there is actually already an indication here you're very gentle. I think that's good. So even if there is inner demon might be something else. It might be that you are too gentle and you're not cleansing and caring enough to yourself. I don't know. We'll see what we get at that point. But right now I'm not sort of feeling that there is much of a risk that you are overly astringent. You have great emotional depth, and a great heart. Like you come from the place of what would you want emotionally to be the case. So I think you have a huge reputation for calming, groups of people, keeping the peace in a household, like helping people emotionally, like very, very much that. You kind of slow things down enough. Like that's sort of interesting in a way. If you think about, I think about like once a fortnight, I shut this store because we have cleaners that come through and other things like that. And really everything shuts down while that's going on because it's sort of like I can't be filming readings when that's going on and so forth. So I shut my private store, I mean. So like sometimes like just the act of cleansing slows everything down enough to kind of emotionally regulate it again and to allow for more clear choices that are likely to be a lot happier. There's also a sense of harmony here. So I think you just have a natural, I think it's not just cleansing, I think it's also healing. I think you're a natural healer. I think that energy is there as well. But I think that it's very emotionally connected. So I don't see you as having a reputation for going and doing household cleaning, though there's nothing wrong with doing that, and it's a wonderful thing that people come and do that. But I don't think that's really what we're talking about here. I think we're talking about particularly emotional energy. You're just extremely good at kind of like clearing it out and freeing it. That's you're like an emotional balm, which is wonderful. So let's see how that's playing out at the moment, how that reputation is playing out. Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Wands, Four of Pentacles, the Empress, King of Wands. Okay. Now I'm reading these cards in two different ways. So, like one is the classic reading, but I am also looking at them as the breakdown of how many major arcana, minor arcana, and court cards do we have. Because the court cards to me tells me that there are either individuals or groups of people with those energies that have an important impact on how you are building and developing this spiritual reputation. So you've got three court cards here. So of all the readings that I've done, this is the one that has the most about interpersonal relationships, people that you know, or groups of people that you know. We have Four of Pentacles, which is what is kind of your energy with it. And then we have the Empress, which is the overarching, bigger external energy. So if we started with the Empress, the bigger overarching external energy is about caring, nurturing, mothering. There is something very divine feminine about you, actually. You've got the Queen of Cups, the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Wands, the Empress. Like I feel like there's a very strong divine feminine energy in this cleansing. So for some of you, particularly with the King of Wands reversed here, you may be called upon to cleanse energy of kind of anything that's illegitimately patriarchal or that has suppressed women in some way. Now, you don't have to be a woman to do this, but there could be something like that going on. There's also something here about, I think, the right use of emotion, material wealth, and creativity and power. Cleansing where there is the wrong use of power. Again, in a sort of nurturing, growthful way. For you create the foundation to allow for, good conduct and to also clean away ego-based conduct. So I do think like you're like an amazing mediator or an amazing peacekeeper or something like that. That you are really able to do that, and you do it a lot with other people, and you do it a lot around people coming into their true material and sort of passionate energy as opposed to ego. So I think you cleanse away ego. You might actually, some of you may be therapists or something like that. You have a very nurturing, caring sort of basis for people to be able to manifest their growth and their abundance, but it's not about ego. Like you clean away that which is difficult in that space. So okay, let's see what this means for your spirit path at the moment. This reputation you have. It's a really good reputation to have, I think, actually. Eight of Wands. Ooh, the blank card. Okay. That's where it's the same on both sides. Why would we talk about that? Four of Wands. Okay. All right. So this is a pivotal time, actually, for you to learn about this reputation. You're meant to be liberated in some way as a result of it. You will still have good connections with others, but I think this is now, you've done this a lot for other people. You've been very other person focused. It's now like, what can you do for you? And there's something that's going to come that will trigger this. So it could be, something where you understand your own, you've kind of cleaned everybody else's emotional space and you now need to clean your own because something unexpected comes along and you need to be free to be able to follow it while still feeling you have connections with others. Or you need to free yourself of like almost I've been too selfless. I'm now realizing it because of something big that comes that is a bit challenging, that makes me realize that I have to clean my own space. But there is something coming from the liminal that you don't expect. I don't think it's going to be bad. It's all about liberation for you and it's all about using this ability. But I feel like it's using it for yourself because you've used it a lot for other people. That there is something to focus this more on you and your path. So even if it's challenging, which I suspect it might be, it's still for your good because it's about you applying your own abilities to your own situation and getting the liberty that you give to other people. Okay, so if that's the case, it's very important to know both where you're working in the area of light and your angelic side and where you have shadow and your kind of inner demons, because the inner demons are the ones that may make the most challenge in whatever this thing is that's coming. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of angelic or similar sort of energies here, and we're going to have a couple of demons here. Now, this does not mean demons are around you, even if you have great natural exorcism abilities, does not mean demons are around you. This is like, if you work with demons, fine. And if you work with angels and other spiritual beings, fine. And you see something come up that you think you work with, take that as a confirmation. But that's going to be only a very small number of people, if anybody, that comes to these readings. So otherwise, just take it as your own internal light and your own internal demons. So firstly, the energies around your light, the use of the light, what your reputation is around your light energy with this cleansing ability. Hathor, celebration, rejuvenation, gratitude. So that is a sort of a sense of like building good energy amongst people. And like bringing in, like one of the cleansing things you would do with a group is get somebody, people to a level of gratitude rather than sort of feeling sort of like, oh, we haven't got what we want, or we're victims or whatever. It's like moving people towards a sense of gratitude is a really powerful thing. And we also have the Archangel Sandalphon, music, earth star, answer prayers. So this is very much here in this earth. It's like what can you do? It's interesting with music. There could be something here about using music, that kind of energy, to both cleanse your own area, but also to cleanse other areas. But and also to move towards celebration and rejuvenation and gratitude rather than feeling stuck. Music may actually be a modality you can use, but otherwise, I think this is very much about how you can connect people to what they need and their answered prayers by cleansing that which is standing in the way. Let's have a look at the inner demons that you have to deal with as a result of this spiritual reputation and ability. Firstly, we have Kali, okay, creation, power, destruction, and death. So I think this is like at its macro level what I was talking about, which is almost like, something that is too astringent, something that is too strong can be destructive as opposed to creative. So it's like, but sometimes you may need to kind of break down the calcification of something, like destroy something to actually liberate it and let it grow and be healthy again. A bit like, a gardener prunes the trees and the bushes and so forth so they can grow in a more healthy way. But like if there's an inner demon that's too destructive, it might be sometimes just taking that a little bit too far. What else? And if this is challenging, like do you just move to destroy rather than to liberate? That could be the energy. And then we have Torn Gasuk, Stormbringer. Okay. Guidance and wisdom, especially during challenging times or periods of uncertainty. So I think that you kind of do have an inner, I think this is saying, even within the sort of like your inner demons, you have an inner regulatory thing and an inner sense of, I need to go and get guidance before I come on full Kali. So I think that's good. But it is possible that for some in cleansing a situation, you may take on this role of guidance. And if it's too strong, it's maybe too strong for others and it's too big a change and that becomes an issue. So it's the moderation sort of thing again. So let's see a little bit more about this with tarot. We're going to use the Golden Dream Tarot here and we're going to use the Gothic Dawn Tarot there. So It's a little bit more about the use of like things like music and answered prayers and things like that. That kind of side of like getting back into the flow as part of the cleansing. How is that your kind of inner light? Magician reversed, the Knight of Pentacles reversed, the Seven of Swords, the Moon. Okay. I'm going to put out the other one before I talk about this. So let's just see with the Gothic Dawn what else we can learn about Kali and Torngasuk. Ten of Wands, Five of Wands, Eight of Swords reversed. Tower, okay, all right. I think that's pretty clear. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, over here, and the cleansing energy that you're using to try and get things back into flow, quite a lot of it has to do with finding where you have to highlight and clear out and bargain with and almost defeat sort of like falsehoods and things that are hidden. It's like you cannot get to the core thing and allow something to grow until you do that. So I think this is like shifting. You find in a cleansing process in a group, for instance, you find those that are the queens as opposed to the king reverse that we had before by like testing out beliefs, discussing things and finding that which is hidden. And that then clears away that which is not growthful. In a weird way, there's something about like using flow, music, that kind of energy to get people to open up so that then you can know what are the energies that need to be cleared out here, what are the energies that are false or trickster energies, so that you diagnose where you need to cleanse the energy. And when you're doing that, works really, really well. I think what this is saying is that if there's a lot of resistance to what you're trying to do, and it's like a huge burden, like it's almost impossible to shift anything, then you will maybe go too far in the cleansing, like too far in highlighting what's going on, too far in terms of like conflict, just to break out of what appears to be a kind of mental trap. So a lot of this has to do with cleansing energy around, like beliefs, mental traps, mental energy and so forth. And like the only time you're going to have to worry about this is that, like if you overdid it, is where there is a hell of a lot of resistance. So that's when I think you have to go back to how do I make this more gentle? Because otherwise, I cleanse the place, but it's devastated at the end. And I do think something's coming up where that balance is going to be really important, pile 3. Okay, so let's have a look at the astrology energy for each. So what I'm really looking at here is both the sign and the planets. Just get a sense about how some of these energies operate. So this energy, which seems to be about gently finding the flow and finding where things are not in flow, where things are not honest or whatever, to cleanse the kind of communication that's going on. Firstly, we have Uranus in the 12th house, works from behind the scenes. Yeah, I think this is like getting to the core of what's hidden. The change energy your cleansing energy comes from revealing what is hidden. But in the 12th house, you're not doing it in a really upfront way. You're doing it kind of gently. And we also have Uranus again in the 10th house, needs to break free from societal expectations. Well, I'm not really that interested in what that says about that. I think this is some of this change is in places of power and dealing with power. Issues of power are important. Okay, then where things can be too much. What's the astrological energy around that? Firstly, we have Mars in the 2nd house, possessive. Okay, yeah, I think like how this connects to what you think is the good life and what the good life should be. You could get aggressive in the way that you tried to cleanse. So it's important to be aware of that. The people have different ideas about what, right living and good living is. And we have a Gemini rising. Okay, curious. Yeah, so that's like, and it can be going too far and trying to find out what's going out. Like there's a really good balance here where it's like you do need to get to understand what needs to change and what is false, but not be too nosy and not be too aggressive. So, it's like anything with cleansing, like that energy is good, but it's not to be too much, which is sort of what I felt at the beginning. But I do think it plays out with other people, and for the most part you're very gentle. It's only when you hit this sort of thing where there's a kind of a block that doesn't make any sense, that's when it can go too far. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of other spiritual gifts that you're in the spiritual realm they know you have, but that you might not have really thought about having or using, that can help you with this. Release. Okay. Yeah. Being able to release. It's like, it's not just cleansing something. It's also for you releasing it. There may be a degree to which, and this is where this might happen, like it may start to sort of build up like a burden on you and calcify. If you're constantly clearing the energy, dealing with sort of falsehoods and helping people get to authenticity and clearing the emotional energy, you may be carrying a bit too much. So you actually also can release it from yourself. This is why it's saying it's sort of like the Eight of Wands and the Four of Wands. It's like, yes, it's great you create harmony, but you also need freedom. And something's going to happen that really pushes that dial for you. Also, forgiveness. Okay. And sometimes, interesting that it fell here, sometimes you just got to forgive that not everybody is going to be able to move with what you're saying. And you might sometimes have to forgive yourself if you've gone a little bit too far. Just release the energy, because it kind of goes with the territory with cleansing. Sometimes people are going to resist. Sometimes it may be a bit much. Sometimes it may be perfect, but you may be carrying stuff. So Spirit wants you to know that you can move forward without this burdening you. Okay, so to finish up, in quite a few readings lately, I've been using tarot, and I've been saying choose a number from 1 to 5, 1 to 5, and then just said the archetype is like the final message for that part of the collective for this reading. Instead of tarot, I'm using the Mystic Maiden's Oracle for a spiritual archetype. So this is like a spiritual archetype that's part of your reputation in the spiritual realm that also helps bring together this cleansing sort of energy for you. So if you don't know a number between 1 to 5 that you would choose right now, pause, think up the number, and then unpause, because I'm about to deal out. So if you chose number 1, the Nomad. If you chose number 2, the Elemental Sorceress. If you chose number 3, the Protector. If you chose number 4, the Astral Traveller. If you chose number 5, the Wind Whisperer. Okay, so if you chose number 1, one of the ways to deal with this is to be nomadic. It's like you don't have to stay and do the sort of cleansing over and over and over. You come and go. There's sort of something almost like you're called to where you need to be, you do it, you move on. So feel that sense and see it as freedom. See that as part of the freedom and how you don't carry. That's why it's really important not to carry too much of a baggage, because you're always going to be moving to where do I need to do this. If you chose number 2, there's a lot of elemental energy you're using with this. I think particularly like cups, because of so many cups in the first row, like the emotional stuff. But remember, we also had the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Pentacles. I think like understanding the elemental energy, that will help you work out what needs to be cleansed, what would flow look like, what would right balance look like. So you have that ability to do that and to bring things into balance. If you chose number 3, you are highly protective. This is, in fact, I think for you, you are seen first and foremost as a protector of others. And the way that you do it is cleansing energy. So I think that kind of, it's almost this, then this, whereas for the others it's this, then this in a way. If you chose number 4, you can send this energy out astrally, and you maybe do a lot of this in the liminal space, which probably helps you not carry too much for the most part, but it would sort of make sure you meditate and go in and release the energy that you've picked up on the astral traveling. And if you chose number 5, then I think it's a similar thing. I think they're quite similar. I think that you do a lot in the liminal, and some of it is actually to influence. And I think it might be a really good key to this balance is that when you feel like you're being blocked, instead of like going in really hard, use the capacity to influence on a liminal level to put ideas in people's heads. I mean, what it makes me think of is sometimes in organizations when you needed management to shift, and I would sometimes have to deal with that in a job that I did, the very best thing you could do is get them to think your idea was their idea, because then they would want to do it. So it's almost like seed the idea when you find resistance, and that you have the ability to do that liminally. So I hope that that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.